So I'm talking about the full moon in Gemini that happens on December 22nd, the day after the solstice, that will be in Ardra Nakshatra. The sun has also joined Saturn. This is a general forecast. I also do more detailed forecasts for members where this full moon is evaluated based on each of the 12 zodiac signs, because it is different for each person. There's a link in here where you can register for that if you haven't gotten that before. It's a great way to also track the daily forecasts and where the moon is moving each day, the changes in the nakshatra, in the tithi, in the rashis, and all that stuff that's based on the classic Indian Panchanga. So you can check that out as well. Only 50 cents. You could try that for 2 weeks, and then if you want to stay, then you can just get the regular membership fee. But this is going to be an important full moon. Of course, Ardra Nakshatra is really important. It's that energy of Lord Shiva as the destructive and terrifying form of Rudra, the howler, the one who destroys and transforms. Now again, this is an extremely potentially volatile full moon because the sun is down here in Mula Nakshatra. Mula literally means root, and it's related to Muladhara. It's related to the goddess Kali. In the Vedas, that entity was known as Niriti, which means calamity or destruction, and uprooting and blowing apart and destroying things, pulling things out by the roots and starting them over again. And you see this comes after Scorpio. The sun has just moved from Scorpio into Sagittarius. And again, as you know, I follow the Jyotish text in every Vedic astrology text. Nakshatras, nakshatrapadas, we're all aligned with the rashis, with the zodiac. You know, those who would say that there's no relationship between rashis and nakshatras, it's just simply not true. In every astrological text, the zodiac is clearly aligned this way. So, you know, the sun is in Mula Nakshatra, and this would be the same as if, it was the same as it was 10,000 years ago, as it will be 10,000 years from now. When the sun is in this position in the sky, it's Mula Nakshatra and sidereal Sagittarius. And this is actually where the plane of the galaxy runs. This is literally the Galactic Plane. So the plane of the galaxy runs like right along 640 of Sagittarius and Gemini, and right along the middle of the nakshatra of Mula and the beginning of Ardra. So again, the Galactic Plane is that source of energy from the Milky Way galaxy. And we don't understand this often, or if perhaps you don't understand this or know this, but if it weren't for what's called the heliosphere, which is the sun and his influence extending, beyond our solar system, or I should say enveloping our solar system, we would be just really decimated by the X-rays and gamma rays and the flood of radiation coming from the center of the galaxy and coming from this section of the sky. So this section of the sky is that section of destruction, transformation at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. There's said to be large black hole. And as I said, even just the radiation that exudes from the center of the galaxy, it would make it impossible for there to be life on Earth if it weren't for the heliosphere. Helio means sun, heliosphere, so the sun's sphere, which envelops the entire solar system. Again, this is one of the qualities of the sun. The sun is that divine father, that protective influence, literally protects the whole zodiac, or I'm sorry, the whole solar system with, from the destructive quality of this section of the sky. And again, this is how you can see that sidereally as well, as far as being aligned with the nakshatras and the rashis as well. Sagittarius and Gemini are these two dual signs where energy is changing and transforming and kind of blowing apart, right? Sagittarius, on a more kind of esoteric spiritual level, it's where we take that stress and fear and worry and pain of Scorpio, which was the previous sign, where we have to encounter our fear of death and the fear of those things we can't control, our imagined fears of Scorpio. And then it goes into Sagittarius, where we then develop a belief system. We look for a higher purpose and a higher meaning beyond just that, that sort of dark fantasy that we might get into in Scorpio. And the first nakshatra in Sagittarius, again, is that nakshatra of Mula, which takes and blows apart and breaks down that stress and fear and worry and that kind of stuck sort of tamasic energy of Scorpio. It kind of breaks it apart and uproots that, which then leads to the higher spiritual awareness, understanding, devotion, hope, inspiration, and purpose of Sagittarius. So that first section of Sagittarius is Mula, where we break down and uproot the previous value system and belief system and that dark vision of the world, so that we can then plant seeds of truth, deeper seeds of truth in that nakshatra of Mula, where we plant the seeds. Then in Purva Ashada, we water those seeds through devotion, love, and that's the early victory. Just like our early victories in life are where we were nurtured and how we were nurtured. So then it's nurturing those beliefs. And then the last nakshatra in Sagittarius is Uttarashada, which takes that previous to, the process of planting and nurturing, and then shows where the guaranteed victory, or the victory is guaranteed by the focus of Capricorn and the inspiration of Sagittarius. So you see the nakshatras really build when you go through the dynamism of the zodiac this way. I've taught a lot of courses on this. It's actually a very beautiful matrix, but we're at this point in our, in the zodiac and in the calendar right now, because it's also the winter solstice. And again, the winter solstice happens at this point, each year. This is where we have the winter solstice. It happens at Ardra and Mula, at least right now. It's happening at this point based on the precession. It's been happening at this point for the last 10 to 20 years or so. This whole sort of transformational time is extremely, it's that sort of veil between light and dark when we're having the darkest days in the northern hemisphere, and then of course in the southern hemisphere it's about to be the first day of summer. But so there's a lot of transformation and change happening right now with the sun in Mula and the full moon in Ardra. Again, the full moon is where we're looking away from the center of the galaxy, and Mula Nakshatra, we're looking back into the middle at the galactic core. And along the Mula Ardra axis is the plane of the galaxy. But literally, if we were to look at the sun right now, we're looking straight back into the center of the galaxy. When we see that full moon on Friday night, on Friday night the moon will be bright and visible and full, but it literally happens, the exact full moon opposition happens like Saturday morning at about almost 10 a.m. Pacific time. But you're actually looking directly away from the center of the galaxy. So this is where the sun is, this is where the Earth is in its orbit. We're looking straight back into the center of the galaxy when we look at the sun, and completely away from it when we're looking at the moon. So that's where Ardra Nakshatra is in the sky. When we're looking at Ardra and those early stages of sidereal Gemini, it's literally away from the center of the galaxy. And Ardra is connected to the star Betelgeuse. So when you look up in the sky and you see the full moon, like on Friday night and also Saturday night, it'll still be very full. It'll be very bright. You'll see that it's next to the bright star Betelgeuse, which is a gigantic star. It's a red giant, and it's a huge star. I think it's the largest star along the ecliptic per se. The other large ones are Jeshta, which is Antares, is also a huge star, just its magnitude. But I think Betelgeuse is the largest. I know Rohini or Aldebaran is also a very large star, but Betelgeuse, which is also Ardra, is huge. And so again, this is the nature of Lord Shiva, to destroy, transform, and connect with something that's beyond just our beliefs, and that's beyond just a sort of conventional wisdom, or sort of propriety. Again, this is how those qualities of Gemini counterbalance and counteract and harmonize the energies of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is about that belief and purpose, and as I just said, something beyond all of the fear and darkness of the world, because we want to believe. We want to believe something. We want to believe in our teachers. We want to believe that they're right. Sometimes we're too, devoted and too religious to what our teachers say, because all teachers, they don't know what they're talking about in all areas. They might know what they're talking about in some areas, but in others they don't. So we need to question them. We need to test what they say. We need to say, are you sure that this is correct? And that's what Gemini is about. Stereotypically, Gemini is questioning the blind faith, the potentially blind faith of Sagittarius. And Ardra Nakshatra, especially Ardra, is the one that's like ready to defend what is right and truthful, whether or not it's conventional, or whether or not it disrupts what the Brahmins think, or what have you. This is why Lord Shiva was really the kind of outsider in that sense. He was outside of the whole, the propriety of the devas. And that's literally what the devas and the asuras and the Brahmins and the other, the different, range of beings. That's a good way to look at it. Like the Rakshasas, who are said to be demons, it's not really demon like we would expect it to be, like evil forces. That's sort of mixed in with it, but it was more of the, like if someone has, especially in a more functional nature, of a deva or an asura temperament or a Rakshasa temperament, like for instance, if the nakshatra has the gana or the temperament of a Rakshasa, it doesn't mean you're a demon. It means you're eccentric, you're individual, you're ready to challenge authority. Now, it can also mean that no matter what anybody says, you won't listen. So there's certainly a negative quality to it. But there's a negative quality to the Deva nakshatras as well, which means no matter what anybody says, you're going to just believe in the kind of airy-fairy conventional way and just kind of preserve the tradition, which is one of the problems of the Brahmins. One of the problems of the Brahmin caste is they just want to keep everything stable and sort of conventional, whereas there's a mixture of eccentricity and devotion and loyalty that really makes for intelligence and wisdom that can be practiced. So these are the kinds of things that you can see between the Sagittarius Gemini axis. Sagittarius being that Brahmin, that sattvic sign, wanting to find that higher devotional cause and those pure teachings, things that are pure. But it's mixed with, it has to be harmonized with that more rajasic quality of Gemini. Rajas is about stimulation, desire, activity, the willingness to get in there and figure things out for ourselves, not just accept not just accept what we're told. And again, there's a delicate mix, because we might not accept what we're told, and by extension, never listen to what anybody says. That's not good either. So there has to be that harmonizing of values. So this full moon is really bringing a lot of this into contrast. It's really a time for you to question your beliefs, not just spiritual or religious beliefs, but also about politics and relationships and the world and all of that. Challenge your preconceived notions and preconceived ideas. And again, what often happens, and what you should look at, is you wind up having to do this whether you want to or not. It's not like we sit back, especially on a larger scale, as I'm saying right now, and we say, now's a good time for me to question my conventional beliefs. No, what winds up happening is we see it mirrored and reflected in the world around us. We see the circumstances playing out where our paradigm is questioned. And we can see it, especially in the world now, with so many things, so many preconceived ideas of what we thought the world was getting upended, getting turned upside down. It's making us really question what we thought was possible, what we think is right, what's the kind of world we want, what's the kind of vision that we're willing to support or fight against or escape from, or what. Like, so we see this coming out in, you know, in the world around us. And right now, when we have these full moons, we have this full moon right on the galactic plane, right where these nakshatras are lit up and blown up like this, and these rashis, Sagittarius and Gemini, which are very probably the two, I mean, you know, Pisces and Virgo are also dual signs, but because they're feminine, they're more conventional, they're a little less active. You know, Virgo is also a dual sign, but it's a earth sign. You know, Pisces also is a water sign, so it's more emotional and more intuitive. Gemini and Sagittarius are probably the most expressive, volatile, changing, transformational signs in the zodiac, just because they're dual, which always wants to be changing, and they're the parts that need to be changed. You see, you want to understand something, and it's a very important concept. We often hear things like, especially that's assessed to the 8th house and Scorpio, especially 8th house and Scorpio. People say change and transformation, change and transformation. They love change and transformation. And that's not true. Scorpio sign and 8th house kind of energy is where we resist transformation, where transformation is painful, where we get transformed against our will. Like somebody dies, something gets taken from us. We realize that somebody has been cheating on us. Something gets, you know, out of our control, just blows up out of the blue, and it changes us instantly against our will. We didn't ask for it. It's the painful transformation where we realize we don't have any control. That's what the 8th house and Scorpio energy is about. But the real way we're supposed to change, and the change that we embrace and the change we want, is shown in those dual signs, particularly with Mercury and Jupiter, the planets Mercury and Jupiter, because they rule those dual signs, and especially Sagittarius and Gemini. They live to be changing. They must be changing. They want to be changing all the time. And the thing they don't want is to be stuck. They don't want to be stuck in something. Their whole life revolves around change. And so when we get the full moons, especially in Gemini and Sagittarius, things change. Things can blow up easily, things can shift, and all of a sudden everything changes and we have to change with it. And again, it's where it shows the need to be adaptable. And it shows where we're initiating change, or where we should be. So now's a time where you need to be initiating change in your life and finding the things that need to be changed and having the intelligence and the faith to do it. The intelligence, which is Mercury, the faith, which is Sagittarius. And by the way, it's not, you know, and it's not coincidental that these nakshatras that I just talked about, this Mula Ardra axis, is right at the beginning. It's right at the beginning of Sagittarius. It goes from 6 degrees to 20, 640 to 20 in Gemini. So the most transformative section of the zodiac by far, the Mula Ardra axis, is where so many things get blown up. I did a case study several years ago about Ardra especially, and the change that comes in Ardra. But again, it's no surprise that you have these nakshatras in these rashis where we're supposed to embrace change through intelligence and hope and faith and discrimination and trusting in our teachings, all that. Trusting in the teachings and faith is the Sagittarius. You know, discrimination, communication, intelligence is Gemini. Those two things working together shows a lot of the active changes that we're going through in life, or we should be. And so I say we should be because I'm saying that when we get lunation cycles there, either the full moon or the new moon in Sagittarius or Gemini, It's a time when we're supposed to be embracing some kind of creative change through intelligence and faith. So what in your life is ready to be changed through your faith and your intelligence, based on the skills and intelligence you've acquired through your life, which is Gemini, and the faith that you can get through whatever it is, and through devotion and teachings. Because there are things in your life that look like they could just blow apart, that you could let go of. But again, in some ways, maybe you're hanging on to them because of the Scorpio habit, the habit of Scorpio, and the imagined fears of Scorpio, which is this lunation cycle now from Scorpio to Sagittarius, where the sun moves from Scorpio to Sagittarius. Of course, the other lunation cycle is when it goes from Taurus to Gemini. So with Taurus, we can get attached to like comfort. And well, it's better than the unexpected. At least I have this, even if it's no good. At least I'm used to it. At least I'm comfortable with it. And so the Gemini is usually where we have to get out of our comfort zone. So ponder these things. It's a whole dynamic, right? It's a whole dynamic range that gets opened up when we have these lunation cycles. And with this one, Sun in Sagittarius, which is where you're looking for higher inspiration and purpose and wanting to make sure that you're dialed into it and you're ready to transform your life based on the possibility. It's hard to really cognize it until we get that full moon in Gemini where you're like, oh yeah, here's how it can work. Here's the details that I need to focus on in order to change into that next higher level. That's the big lesson right now. Now, this full moon happens in Ardra, as we said, in the sign of Gemini, and the sun in Sagittarius in the nakshatra of Mula. But Saturn is also very close to the sun. You're about 10 degrees. Now, Saturn is really bringing this kind of pressure. And it's even a kind of pressure that may wear on our confidence, our vision, our light may be feeling even more extinguished at the moment because, it's already, at least in the northern hemisphere, it's already the darkest days here near the winter solstice. But just in general, what Saturn can do on the sun is kind of dampen our enthusiasm so that we're not so aligned with those higher teachings, or they seem hard to remember, or again, our lack of confidence is there because the sun gives us the vision and the courage and the strength to go, yes, this thing, I want to share this light, I want to do this big thing. Saturn is like, well, be careful, you might make a mistake, you might look foolish, you might say the wrong thing. Are you sure that's what you want? Are you sure you got the confidence to do that? Are you sure you're strong enough? What about those other people who are stronger, better? And then the sun's like, oh yeah, well, I got to be careful. So Saturn is the energy literally that makes us aware of our past mistakes, where we might look foolish. And this can harm our confidence a little bit, where we might, obviously be lacking the confidence to change. And again, that can lead to frustration and kind of projecting out that scarcity, blaming others for our lack of courage, blaming others because we don't have the courage to change. So notice this dynamic right now as well. With Saturn on the sun right now and, opposite the moon, his influence is to first humble us a little bit, but it also has a great, catalyzing effect of making things, of bringing a lot of determination and willingness to work hard to get through that same stuff, particularly if we're serving something higher than just our own, level of confidence or some, confidence is actually the light of the soul filtered through our ego. Confidence is really a kind of shell game of the ego. Because the reason people really do great things isn't because they have the confidence to do them. We don't have any confidence to do something we haven't done yet. We don't have the confidence to do it yet. That's not why we do something that we haven't done. It's not because we have confidence, because we have confidence to do something we've already done. It's like, I have the confidence that I can do this, so we do it. But stepping outside of our comfort zone, which is what the sun is trying to do, is not going to be facilitated by our level of confidence. It's going to be facilitated by our vision and by our inspiration. That's what inspires us to get outside our comfort zone and actually learn and grow. And again, these are all qualities of Sagittarius, by the way. And so when we serve something higher than ourselves, then we're not just motivated by our confidence or our lack of confidence. So ponder that. It's very important. And eventually what happens is we have the confidence that no matter what happens, I can get through it. I can navigate it. Rather than, I'm confident I know how to do this specific thing, we wind up saying, I'm confident that I can take a chance and make it work regardless of if I look foolish or if I make a mistake. But in that example, we're not focused on our ego, we're focused on our vision and our purpose, because that purpose and vision is much bigger than our comfort zone. So ponder that whole quality of Saturn-Sun conjunction here. And again, if you want to see how this would impact your sign, because again, this is going to be totally different if you're Pisces than if you're Leo. If you're Pisces, this full moon happens in your 4th house. If you're Leo, it happens in your 11th house. If you're Libra, it happens in your 9th house. So it's different for every ascendant. And these 12 lunation cycles, it's actually 24 lunation cycles throughout the year because there's a new moon and full moon. This is why we have 12 months, 12 zodiac signs. This is why there's 12 hours, 12 hours twice a day. You ever wondered that? This is where the original 12 comes from. It comes from lunation cycles in a year. Earth going around the sun is one cycle of the year, the solar year, you would say, or the sidereal year. However you want to measure it, Earth going around the sun is one cycle, but then within that, the sun going around the Earth, the moon going around the Earth in relation to the sun measures, there are 12 of them, 30 days. It takes the moon 27 days to go around the Earth, but by the time of that 27-day circumference of the moon around the Earth has moved around the sun far enough to where it takes 30 soli lunar days. Okay, this is why, the moon moves 13 degrees 20 minutes each day, but it separates from the sun 12 degrees each day. So there's a 1 degree lag between the distance of the distance of the moon around the Earth and its lunation cycle with the sun. This is why you have 30 tithys in one orbit of the moon going around the Earth every 27 days. Anyway, but the original cycle, the reason there are 30 degrees in the zodiac, approximately 30 days in the month, the 30 is to measure lunation cycles. Because rather than break up the year into one big thing, we break it up into these lunation cycles because those are the important moments of conception, birth, and death each year. Boom. And we have these 12 lessons that correspond with these lunation cycles. And I'm glad that there are a lot of Vedic astrologers talking about this now. And I started talking about this, not just started, but I've been doing daily forecasts focusing on lunation cycles for about 12 years. I'm glad to see other Vedic astrologers have picked up that mantle, because again, even on YouTube, my first forecasts were from 2007, where I did daily forecasts. So I've been doing it a long time. So I've been tracking these lunation cycles in sidereal zodiac, of course, for about at least 10 to 12 years. So it's dyed in the wool. So again, I'll just say this when it comes to zodiac thing, people that are like, well, can you give us an example of zodiac of one or the other? I do it all the time. I've been doing it for like 10 years, 12 years. And this is a clear example, okay? So again, if that's not the way you do it, that's fine, but it's very clear in the text. It's very clear how nakshatras and rashis align in this sense, and they always have in that regard. So the sidereal sky is always there in that full integrity, and we can see it very clearly at this time when we have the lunation cycles, when we enter these portals. This is also why in India, all the festivals, they're not timed to calendar dates. Like December 25th is Christmas. If they were to have a Christmas, it would probably be on the solstice, which is literally when we should be celebrating it as well. But everything is timed to the lunar days. You know, like Navratri begins on the first lunar day, Pratipada, right? You have, you know, Guru Purnima is literally the full moon. It's not on a calendar date. It's not a Gregorian calendar date. It's a lunation cycle in that masa, or in that section, which means that you're going to have you will have the lunation cycles falling in that section of the sidereal sky. That section of the sky is when you have the months, or I'm sorry, when you have the celebrations. It's when the Earth is in that portion in its orbit around the sun, and then you have the lunation cycle at that time. And this was written all the way back in the Vedanga Jyotisha, when they talk about when to start the year and all this stuff in the 12 months. So I don't want to get too off in the weeds of that, but this is truly how this science has been working. This technology has been working for literally maybe 3,000 or 4,000 years. They've been measuring these cycles this way. So it's nothing new. But if you want to see how this corresponds to you based on your rising sign, then you can also, as I said, join the Astrology Training Lab, only 50 cents for 2 weeks, and you get daily forecasts, not just written by me, but some of my advanced students as well. Jeff Poole, who is doing great work, teaching all around the world as well, has been writing daily forecasts as well. Try it for 50 cents. 2 daily forecasts, and you get these lunation forecasts relative and appropriate for your sign. So besides that, check it out and be careful and embrace change as a creative force, as a force of hope, as a force of intelligence and wisdom.